Hello, and welcome back to Take Charge Tuesday. I am so excited to be with you here today. I took a week off. I'm going to try to do that every few weeks to give myself a little bit of time just to, enjoy life, chill. I did it this time, not because I was enjoying life, but because we just bought a house. And so that has become its own thing. I probably took off the wrong Tuesday. I should probably have been taking off this Tuesday. But actually, it was really important to get started with the whole process of getting moved into that new home. Very excited about that. I suppose this means that I am a for sure permanent resident of Cleveland. I don't know. I will, I guess. I love Ohio. I love Northeast Ohio in particular. I mean, it's the whole state's my jam, but y'all, eh, for everybody who's like, oh my God, why'd you move to Ohio? I always have to rebut with, why wouldn't you move here? It's great. We've got like this ocean like thing. This is the north I'm pointing at right there. It's fantastic. It's beautiful here year round. That's me. I love snow. So it's beautiful here year round. I love it. I love it here. So yeah, just got a house and moving in soon and just getting some things prepped for that. And that's why I took off a week. But enough about me because you didn't come here for that. You came here to hear about search friendly websites. And so let's jump into it. Let's talk about it. There are a few very key steps, I'll say, to getting your website to the point where you are really running a search friendly website. And let's start with why. Why would it even matter? Why should you care if your website is search friendly? Why is that a thing? Well, first things first, if people can't find you, period, if you can't find your website, that's bad. I really do not think it is okay for us to have websites that are glorified brochures, where the only job the website has is for you to say you have one. And I think a lot of us, especially service-based businesses, neon sign pointing at myself, a lot of us tend to treat our websites as if they are glorified brochures, and they really just serve that purpose. Now, when I first started doing marketing, I started out my career doing non-digital marketing, and I'll call it a career even though I was at the time volunteering with a nonprofit organization here in Northeast Ohio. And one of the jobs that I had was actually graphic design and doing brochures and things like that. And even when I was designing brochures for a nonprofit organization, for stakeholders, and for people to understand what their organization was about, I did not believe that the brochure even was just a throwaway. Right? We weren't handing them out on the street. These brochures were actually there for people to learn something about the organization. So when I say that a lot of us treat our websites like a glorified brochure, I essentially mean a lot of us treat our websites like a glorified flyer that someone's passing out on the street. And if you've never heard the joke, who I can't think of the guy who the joke is by. I'll think of it later when it doesn't matter to you. But there's a famous joke where he's like, someone's on the street passing out flyers, and they might as well be saying, "Here, you throw this away," right? Which is the idea that they're handing you something, and the only thing that you're going to do with it is throw it away. For the most part, it is not going to serve any value. You're not going to fold that up, and it's not going to be a keepsake. Your website is not meant to do that. Your website is not meant to be a throwaway. And so, since your website is not meant to be a throwaway, what is it supposed to do? Your website is supposed to inform people. It is supposed to help someone who doesn't know how they can work with you to learn how to work with you, learn what to do in order to get started, in order to know for sure that you're the person who can solve their problem. Your website essentially should be a conversion engine, meaning that it has a job of letting people know that they should trust you and can work with you. If your website is not currently doing that, it is not doing its job. And so it's a separate situation. We need to get that website to the point where it's doing its job. But once we get it to the point where it's doing its job, we also need to get it to the point where people can find it. Because the other thing that happens is that someone is out there in the world and they need you. They need you to solve a problem that they have, and they don't know you exist. They don't sometimes even know they have a problem. And so what the website being search friendly does is that it helps people to combine those two things, finding some solution to their problem that happens to be you, and then that your website explains to them using all of the glorious wonderfulness that's in your website. It explains to them how you can solve their problem, what it is you're going to do, and all that good stuff. So how do we create a search friendly website? There are a few core things that we can do. Let me make sure I am able to see you all and all that good stuff. So there are a few core things that we can do in order to make a website search friendly. The very first thing, because search engines, there are certain things that search engines care about more than they care about other things. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what search engines are looking for, and then we'll talk about what you should be putting for the people who are searching. So first things first, on your website, it needs to be responsive or mobile friendly. Either of those two terms works, responsive design or mobile friendly. What that means is that your website needs to function well on one of these. Now, it needs to function well on one of these. And when I say function well, I mean like it needs to function exactly the same way it functions on the computer. So I'm pointing at my laptop. It needs to function exactly the same way on there as it does on here, to the point that you may even want to consider a mobile first design, because a very large portion of the people who are visiting your website are visiting it on a mobile device. And when I say a large portion, I mean 50%. And for some of us, that number is way higher. So there are some businesses out there where 80% of their traffic is mobile. And I'm not just talking about a platform like Instagram, where they are so mobile first that they didn't even have a website version of their app that you could use effectively until after they were bought by Facebook. And then even after that, it took years for them to get to the point where they had a website that was friendly enough for you to actually do anything on it using a computer. For the most part, they were a very, very mobile first organization. And a lot of organizations are mobile first because that's where their audience is. But you may want to think for yourself, where is your audience? And are you catering to them and the platform the way that they want to be catered to first? A good place to find this out is in your analytics. So you can go to your Google Analytics and see what the majority of your users experience. So are the majority of your users using mobile? Or are they using a desktop or a laptop? Are the majority of your users using Firefox or Chrome or Safari? What browser are they using? Are they iOS? Are they Android? These bits of information will actually help you to figure out what kind of modifications you need to make to your website to make sure that your website is responsive to the way that the customer is actually using it. Okay, responsive. So first things first is responsive design. You have to make sure that the design of your website is responsive. The second thing that I think people completely ignore and you have a lot of control over in your website is internal linking. So search engines want you to have a website that is mobile responsive because they recognize that probably 50%, maybe more of your traffic is mobile. And if that traffic is not getting catered to, they're not going to send people to you, period. And then internal linking, the reason why that becomes a useful thing and why a search engine would care about it is because essentially a search engine doesn't want to think of a search engine like a concierge. Okay. I don't know. I don't know your life. I don't know if you've ever experienced a concierge, but what a concierge does is that they are meant to essentially be a one-stop guide to an experience. So when I was younger, when I was in my early 20s, I went to New York City and stayed at the Grand Hyatt in Manhattan. It's a relatively nice hotel. I was one of those people who would travel and then get all the points by traveling to like random, not fancy places, and then use all of my points to stay in one really nice place for one night. And that was what I was doing at the Grand Hyatt. So I did not have that kind of money back then, but I was staying at the Grand Hyatt and I needed to eat. I'm in New York. It was my first time in New York City, and I had my friends with me. And I went down to the concierge and I said, okay, concierge, where should we go eat? What kind of reservations do we need? We told them what we wanted to eat, and they made recommendations. They did that. I'm not sure. I don't think they made the reservation for us, but only because we didn't know if we were going to take their advice or not. But that was the idea. The concierge knew the city, and then they gave us recommendations based on what we said we wanted, and then what our availability was, because we also were saying we wanted to eat at this time, and they were like, this place is going to be busy and this other place isn't going to be busy. And so what a search engine is essentially like a automatic concierge. And if you think of it like that, it makes it a lot easier to understand why internal linking would be important. So if you have a concierge, what the concierge wants to know before it makes the recommendation is that the person who goes to that restaurant is going to have a good experience. Now, what does that mean? So first things first, that's the reason why that responsive design thing is important. So they want to make sure that the website is going to be useful regardless of what kind of device you're using. So if your website's not responsive, they're not necessarily going to recommend people go to your website. And then as far as internal links are concerned, you can think of internal links like the menu or the options within the restaurant that the concierge is recommending. And so if a person is looking for information but they're not sure, hence searching, they're not sure what they want and whether or not this is going to be the answer, or that they're not sure, the person searching isn't sure, what the concierge wants is the ability to send someone to a place that has a lot of information about that thing, so that it is likely that the person will land in that spot and be able to get whatever they're looking for from that place. That's where internal linking becomes really useful. So if you have links within your website to other pages in your website where you have essentially charted a path from this article to this article to this article, from this product to this product to that product, if you have done that work inside of your website, what a search engine says is, oh, these people have designed a path for someone who is interested in this topic. And so I can send someone to this website because I know that they are going to get information on that first page that they land on. But then if they have more questions, there's a link here, there's a link there. They know, the search engine can say, oh, this is going to help someone further their information and further their knowledge. And so, yes, I may want to send someone to that website. So thinking of it that way, search engine is your concierge, and all you're doing is making yourself recommendable, right? Okay, so we got the first things first is responsive. People got to be able to read it regardless of what website, what device they're on. Internal linking, meaning that they're not going to land on a page and it's just a big old dead end. That does not mean that you need to have every page in your website in your menu. That's not what I mean by internal linking. Your menu is that little top bar at the top. Your menu could have 4 things in it. It doesn't really matter. You need to have your website pages, though, linking to different things in your website. That's what internal linking means. So the content in your website. Now, the next thing is, again, another very concierge-y type thing, is that your website needs to be readable. Like, your website needs to have enough information that has words in it so that it is readable. So again, this might sound dumb, except for that it's not dumb. I have been to plenty of websites where they're using very few words to describe the thing that they're talking about. Maybe there's images or lots and lots of pictures. And so the website is maybe beautiful, but it's not readable, meaning it doesn't have enough information to actually help someone on their journey. And I think this is probably a challenge for people who have product-based businesses, because as much consulting as I do with people who have product-based businesses, which is a lot of food products, a lot of you have a very strong tendency to think that people know something about your product before they land on your website. This is a false assumption. So I will use, because I always do. I don't know how, but Pat's granola is always in my head, probably because it's good. But I will use Pat's granola as an example. I know Pat doesn't do this, which is the reason why I'm going to use it as an example. Pat could think that people know what granola is. She could think that everyone knows what the ingredients are in granola. So she doesn't need to describe it at all, ever. You can just use the word granola and move on with your life. No, everyone knows what that means, except for that that's not true, right? So the truth is that the word granola is like it means a variety of things to a variety of people. And people who make granola make different types of granola. There are different things you can add into granola. There's just a lot of variety that can happen there. And so if you are the person who is running a website selling granola, it would make sense then that you would use your words to describe the granola instead of just using pictures, because pictures are great, but pictures are not readable. Now, if you've gone to or experienced my workshops that I did, or the Take Charge Tuesday session that I did all about accessible websites, then you will know one of the things that you can do is actually to either provide alternate text or caption your images so that they have enough information for a person who is viewing the image to actually essentially read the image as well, instead of just relying on their eyes to give them all the information. You have to think about all of the different modalities of learning. And again, that concierge experience. If you want to be the business that someone sends that concierge sends people to you, if you want to be that business where the search engine is going to send people to you, then you need to make the assumption that people don't know anything, and you need to describe everything. Everything on your website needs a description, and everything in your business needs a description, because people don't know. And we can say that they should know, but it doesn't matter. They don't. And it doesn't. And if we get stuck in the idea of, well, they should know that, that's not hurting anybody but us. Like, not one single person is harmed with the assumption that people should know. The only person who's harmed by that is you. You you get you get harmed by that. So don't be that person who's like, well, people should know. There are no shoulds. There just are no shoulds. Okay. Now, last but not least, is in this analogy of a concierge, is your content itself. So you want to think of your content like the food that is being served, right? So you might think of your products as the food that's being served, but that's not the case with a website. With a website, you're not actually delivering a product. Even if you sell a product-based businesses where someone's going to buy a thing and you're going to send it to their house, once they get it in their hands, they've had the product. Now that's the product. But the website itself is just content. The content is the product on your website. So that is everything that you put on your website. It's your descriptions for all of your products. It is your homepage, all the information about your homepage. It is your About Us page. It is your Contact Us page. It is any blog post that you're going to write. It is articles that you have on your website. It is podcast transcripts that you have on your website. So if you're doing podcasts, like I'm going on a podcast tour right now, so I'm going to be on a lot of different podcasts. On those podcasts, I will be putting those podcast episode transcripts onto my website. And of course, giving attribution to the podcast that I was on, but I'm not going to assume that people are reading. I'm not going to assume that they're listening. I'm not going to assume that they're watching. I'm going to provide them the information in all the formats that I have available to provide it. Because what's really important for us as people who have businesses is that we're putting as much content into our website that is useful as possible. So essentially, you want to do the opposite of what you would do if you had a real restaurant. So if you have a website, you almost want to be like the Cheesecake Factory. So if you've never been to the Cheesecake Factory, this is going to make you want to go. One of the things that the Cheesecake Factory does stupidly well is menu. The Cheesecake Factory menu is like 15 pages long. It's a book. It's a book, y'all. It's a book. There's like 3 pages of appetizers. It's a book. Then they have like a separate book for dessert because they have all the cheesecake, but they have all the desserts that are not cheesecake too. They have a lot of stuff. They sell a lot of stuff, right? And so there's lots of information. And then each of the products in the Cheesecake Factory menu, I haven't been to a Cheesecake Factory in a few years, so We're going to see how close I am to accurate on this. But as I recall, the products in the menu all had both, well, three things: title, a menu item, a picture, and a description, so that you knew exactly what it was you were getting into, period, and a price, obviously. Well, not obviously, but it's a Cheesecake Factory, so they want you to know how much it costs. And so all of these things are included on the menu, because that's how you know what to order when you have a restaurant with all these options. We want to be the Cheesecake Factory with our websites. Like, we want to have as much information as you can throw at people. It needs to have in your website. It needs to be as clear as possible. And this is not something that needs to happen overnight. So let me de-escalate this whole thing, because I know you're thinking, oh God, she just said all of that. Do I have to do all of that right now? No, 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 you don't. But you can do it one page at a time on your website that you have right now. You can go one article at a time, one podcast episode at a time, one piece of content at a time. And then eventually you will have the entire website done. And by the time you do, it will be time for a redesign and you can start all over again. Or, your business will be so booming that someone else can do it the second time, but you will need to do it. Not because I am telling you to, but because you want to be found. And if you want to be found, there are some steps that you got to go through. So those are all of the, well, not all. There's a few more things. I wrote an article about it. You can go over to LinkedIn. There's an article about the multiple ways that you can actually get found. But anyway, the other thing that you can do is come to my workshop that I have happening in 5 minutes, literally. I have a workshop. It is completely free, all about how to make a website that is going to work for your small business. If you are interested in that, it is, again, completely free. Let me grab the link for you so that you can actually come to the workshop. As I'm like, where is it? Let me grab it. There we go. And I would love to see y'all there. I'm going to drop it into the chat into the chat. Come hang out with me. We're going to talk about some of the technical things that you can actually do that are going to help you to know whether or not you're getting found, what things you're getting found for. We're going to talk about some tools that you can use to analyze the information that I'm talking about here. And we're going to get a little bit deeper, because the stuff that I talked about is the high level stuff, but there are a few more deeper dive things that you can do to help yourself get found in search. And so I would love to see you there. Join me in a few minutes and we will help you get your business found on search engines, whichever search engine you're hoping to get found on. There you go. Okay, I will see you all next week. Have a fantastic week. Hopefully I will see you in a few minutes inside of the workshop. See you later.